We're live.
Kansho.
Good morning. Today is October 30th, 2022. Happy Halloween. And we welcome you to New York Buddhist Church's live streaming service, broadcast on Facebook and YouTube. We will start today's service with quiet sitting. Please sit up straight, gently calm your mind, and follow your breath. We will begin with JØ-SEI-GE, Reaffirming the Vows, Tan Nembutsu and Ekoku Mirror Transference on page 54, followed by Vandana Tisarana on page 7. We will then have our Shinshu pledge on page 6, and Jodo Shinshu no Seikatsu Shinjo, page 5. Reverend Gary Shobo Jaskula will then share today's Dharma message. We will end service by singing NAMO AMIDA and Nembutsu on page 135. NAMO AMIDA.
Namo AMIDA Butsu.
Namo AMIDA
Namo
Butsu.
AMIDA
Namo AMIDA Butsu.
Namo
Namo
AMIDA
AMIDA Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo
Namo
AMIDA
AMIDA
Butsu.
Butsu.
Namo AMIDA Butsu. Please rise for the Vandana and Tisarana.
It's on page 7.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to him, the exalted one, the enlightened one, the supremely awakened one.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Buddham saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Dhammam saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sangham saranam gacchami.
I go to the Buddha for guidance.
I go to the Buddha for guidance.
I go to the Dharma for guidance.
I go to the Dharma for guidance.
I go to the Sangha for guidance.
I go to the Sangha for guidance.
Namo Kie Butsu.
Namo Kie Butsu.
Namo Kie Ho.
Namo Kie Ho.
Namo Kie So.
Namo Kie So.
Namo AMIDA Butsu.
Namo AMIDA Butsu. Namo AMIDA Butsu. Namo AMIDA Butsu. Please be seated.
Today's reading is Shinshu Pledge on page 5, Japanese on page 6. I'm sorry, 6 in English and 5 in Japanese. Shinshu Pledge number 2. Entrusting in the vow of, let's read together. Entrusting in the vow of the Buddha and reciting the sacred name, I shall proceed through the journey of life with the strength and joy, revealing the light of the Buddha and reflecting upon my imperfect self. I shall strive to live a life of gratitude, following the teachings of the Buddha and discerning the right path. I shall spread the true Dharma, rejoicing in the compassion of the Buddha, respecting and aiding others. I shall do my best to work towards the welfare of society. Japanese is on page 5. Jodo Shinshu no Seikatsu Shinjo. 一つ、御仏の誓いを信じ、尊い皆を唱えつつ、強く明るく生き抜きます。一つ、御仏の光を仰ぎ、常に我が身を顧みて、感謝のうちに励みます。一つ、御仏の教えに従い、正しい道を聞き分けて、誠の実りを広めます。一つ、御仏の恵みを喜び、互いに敬い、助け合い、社会のために尽くします。
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our service today. It's been an interesting time of the year with the seasons changing. I think we're welcoming the nice weather, a little bit crisp on some mornings, but it's really a beautiful time of the year here in New York. Actually, in the past few days, or yesterday, a real tragedy took place in South Korea. And so I just want to acknowledge what a terrible incident that was and how many young lives were lost in the chaos and the confusion that took place. I mean, it's hard to fathom that there were teenagers and 20-year-olds that died in that incident. And also across the world, the conflict is still going on in Ukraine, and still so many lives being lost, and so much, our world is turning upside down a lot. And so it's hard to maintain our own balance. And I think that's one of the reasons why I come here, and why the Nembutsu helps me in my daily life. But today we have Reverend Gary is going to give the Dharma talk, and I think it's going to be really interesting. He always comes up with something interesting and new for us to explore. So let's listen carefully to his words.
Thank you, Reverend Cheryl. It will not be original or interesting. But it will not be as original or interesting as Reverend Cheryl has set it up. However, it is Halloween, or tomorrow is Halloween, and so I was racking my brain to how to do Halloween Buddhist style. And the Japanese are famous for their horror stories, they're ghost stories, but I couldn't torture one into a Dharma talk. So I thought of, well, why not do the famous Angulimala Sutta? Does everyone know who Angulimala is? We've told the story before, but this is a good day for it. Angulimala, this is a mala, right? So it's 108 beads on a string, and Angulimala means finger mala. So he had a mala of 1,000, but he didn't have 1,000 beads. He had 1,000 fingers. These are people that he killed, and he cut off one finger off of each person that he killed and put it on his string, and it must have made quite an impression, and it's a good thought for today, or for tomorrow anyway. What about that? Why did he do that? And what happened to him? And it's a good lesson for us, too. So before I go into the actual text, which I'm going to use the translation of Tasanaro Bhikshu, which can be found online. But I'll set up the story, which comes from other commentaries, I understand. Angulimala's original name was Ahimsaka, which means harmless. Okay, so he was born under a dark star, and he had some weird astrological predictions on him, and so talking about violence in the future, and so his parents gave him the name Ahimsaka, harmless, so that he wouldn't harm anyone. And Ahimsaka was an incredibly good student. He was very, very bright, and he went to school, sent by his parents, and he was very, very diligent teacher. He was a very, very diligent student. His teacher was very impressed. His classmates were very jealous. And as he progressed into his studies, they became very, very jealous. And the other kids started a cabal against Ahimsaka. And they basically convinced the teacher, going to the teacher one by one behind Ahimsaka's back, that Angulimala had plans to supersede the teacher and eliminate him by foul play. And, like a QAnon kind of cabal, And the teacher bought into it, was quite frightened, and he gave Ahimsaka a command: get out of this classroom and don't come back until you have killed 1,000 people, and bring the fingers to prove it. And, Ahimsaka was a diligent student. He was very upset, of course, but he did what his teacher commanded. He started to go out and kill people. He became a notorious bandit, very frightening in the northern part of India, where Buddha eventually manifested. And you have to think that Angulimala probably had some difficulty at first killing each person, but by the time Shakyamuni Buddha shows up, he's done 999 murders. So he's probably used to it, and he's actually, he enjoys it now. You know, he's given up getting enlightenment from this, but he's now fully into his anger and rage and whatever one has to do to be a murderer. And it is at this moment that Shakyamuni shows up. And I will now go into the sutra a little bit. At that time, in King Pasahadi's realm, there was a bandit named Angulimala. Angulimala is the new name for Ahimsaka, right? It now means finger mala. A bandit, brutal, bloody-handed, devoted to killing and slaying, showing no mercy to living beings. He turned villages into non-villages, towns into non-towns, settled countryside into unsettled countryside. Having repeatedly killed human beings, he wore a garland, mala, made of fingers, anguli. And then the Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha, early in the morning, having put on his robes, I'm summarizing this part, he goes out to do his daily round of begging, and he goes on the road where everybody in town knows that Angulimala is up there. He's up this road. And cowherds, shepherds, and farmers saw him going along the road, and on seeing him, they said, "Don't go along that road, contemplative monk, for on that road is Angulimala, brutal, bloody-handed, devoted to killing and slaying, showing no mercy to living beings. He's turned villages into non-villages, etc. Having repeatedly killed human beings, he wears a garland made of fingers. Groups of 10, 20, 30, 40 men have gone along that road, and even they have fallen into Angulimala's hands." When this was said, the Blessed One kept going in silence, and they repeat the warning a second and a third time. But the Buddha kept proceeding on the road. Then Angulimala himself saw the Blessed One coming from afar, and seeing him, this thought occurred: isn't it amazing? Isn't it astounding? Groups of 10, 20, 30, and 40 men have gone along this road, and even they've fallen into my hands. And yet now this contemplative monk comes attacking, as it were, alone, without a companion. Why don't I kill him? Remember, it's his 1000th finger that he wants to get. So Angulimala, taking up his sword and his shield and putting on his bow and quiver, followed right behind the Blessed One. Then the Blessed One willed a feat of psychic power such that Angulimala, though running with all his might, could not catch up with the Blessed One walking at a normal pace. So this is like a phenomenon has just occurred. And the thought occurred to Angulimala, isn't this amazing? In the past, I've chased and seized even swift-running elephant, swift-running horse, a swift-running chariot, and a swift-running deer. But now, even though I'm running with all my might, I can't catch up with this contemplative walking at a normal pace. So he stopped and called out to the Blessed One, "Stop, contemplative, stop." "I have stopped, Angulimala. You stop," says the Buddha. then the thought occurred to Angulimala. These contemplatives are speakers of truth, asserters of truths, and yet this contemplative, even while walking, says, I have stopped, Angulimala, you stopped. Why don't I question him? And so Angulimala, as a high-ranking noble student, switches into verse at this point and says to Buddha, while walking contemplative, you say, I have stopped. But when I have stopped, you say, I haven't. I ask you the meaning of this. How have you stopped? How haven't I? The Buddha replies in verse, I have stopped, Angulimala, once and for all, having cast off violence towards living beings. You, though, are unrestrained towards beings. That is how I've stopped and you haven't. I'll repeat that. The Buddha says, I have stopped, Angulimala, once and for all, having cast off violence towards living beings. You, though, are unrestrained towards beings. That is how I've stopped, and you haven't. Angulimala replies, at long last, a greatly revered great seer for my sake has come into the great forest. Having heard your verse in line with the Dharma, I will go about having abandoned evil. So saying, the bandit hurled down his sword and weapons over a cliff into a chasm, and the bandit paid homage at the feet of the one well gone, Tathagata, one well gone, and right there requested going forth, that is, becoming a monk. The awakened one, the compassionate great seer, the teacher of the world, along with its devas, said to him, come, bhikshu. That in itself was bhikshuhood for him. So that's the famous story. Angulimala was a man totally obsessed with violence, just as our world is obsessed with violence. We become casually accustomed to it. And yet, when encountering the Buddha, Buddha says, stop, even though he's continuing to walk. But how does he stop? That's the real, so that's a phenomenon. But the real essence of the phenomenon is that he has cast off violence towards all living beings. And then says, you, on the other hand, are unrestrained towards beings. That is how I have stopped, and you have not. So this is a great lesson for our life, especially now at this time. It's creepy enough to be appropriate for Halloween, and yet it's also something to really think about in these really horrible times, right? It's really something. And to put a Shin point of view on this, the important thing to remember is this man has done all kinds of, and this is a bad guy, right? He killed 999 people. Buddha does not turn him away. He does not. He says, "Come, monk." And in the rest of the sutra, which I will not read, we get the subsequent career of Angulimala, and he does have a rough end, but he becomes enlightened and achieves perfect enlightenment in the presence of Buddha. But he is karmically, obviously challenged. He has a lot of enemies. Taking him into the Sangha definitely caused ripples within the Sangha, in some other commentaries mention that. And Buddha did stuff like that, right? He took servants in before their masters into the Sangha, giving them higher place. He did not approve of the caste system. And here he is taking a known and notorious, we're not talking about so-called murderer. Here's somebody who has 999 fingers on his mala. And he doesn't turn him away. And the thing is, strangely enough, for whatever reason, Angulimala was ready to hear what the Buddha said at that moment. When he said, "I've stopped because I do not harm living beings, but you have not stopped because you do not care," it hit him. And he followed Buddha. And it's important from our school's teaching that this is something that we hold very dear, is that no one is excluded. Enlightenment is for all, absolutely without any distinction between doers of good and doers of evil. And that's a hard teaching. We've talked about it before. Especially now, it really is hard to look at the people we don't agree with and stuff like that and to think, oh, these are Buddhas in the making. Very hard. It's hard for me. But this is what we're supposed to do. And I believe Shinran knew this story. In Tanisho, chapter 13, famously, Yuen Bo, one of his disciples, is talking to Shinran. So this is not written by Shinran, but it's Yuen Bo talking about Shinran. And he makes the assertion that Shinran said to him that one day, "Yuen Bo, do you accept all that I say?" And Yuen, good disciple, said, "Yes, I do." Then Shinran says, "Then will you not deviate from whatever I tell you?" And Yuen Bo says, "I humbly affirm this." Thereupon Shinran said, "Now I want you to go and kill 1,000 people. If you do, you will definitely attain birth." Attain birth means being born into the Pure Land, achieving nirvana. So this is too much he doesn't specifically cite Angulimala, but the story of going out to kill 1,000 people in order to achieve some kind of enlightenment clearly resonates. He must have known the story. But Yuen responds, "Though you instruct me to do this, I am afraid it is not in my power to kill even one person." And Shinran pushes, "Then why do you say that you would follow whatever I told you?" And Yuen says, Shinran said, "By this, you should realize that if we could always act as we wished, then when I told you to kill 1,000 people in order to attain birth, you should have immediately done so. But since you lack the karmic cause inducing you to kill even a single person, you do not kill. It is not that you do not kill because your heart is good in the same way. A person may not wish to harm anyone and yet may end up killing 100 or 1,000 people. Thus he spoke, according to Yuenbo, about Shinran. If we believe that our hearts are good, then it is good for birth. And if our hearts are evil, it is bad for birth. And if we think that, we fail to realize it is not by having a good heart or a bad heart, it is by the inconceivable working of the vow that we are saved, that we are brought to enlightenment. That's a difficult teaching. But Yuenbo, the killer of 999 people, was ready to hear the Dharma, and the Buddha said, "Follow me." And we, who don't commit axe murder today, are not to be patted on the back. Oh, good, you didn't commit axe murder today. So it's something to think about. It's something to ponder over, because it really is a mystery how that works. Because we want to be good and to be rewarded for good, and we want evil people punished. It's natural. We all do it. But AMIDA accepts everyone equally. Light and life, wisdom, compassion. It's not just the person, AMIDA as a person, but wisdom itself. You know how they say, even if you don't believe in anything, the sun shines on the just and unjust alike, equally. Enlightenment is like that. So we're told. So we're told. So that is my Dharma message for today. I do hope you have a happy Halloween, and if a little kid comes around with mala with 999 fingers on it, watch out. Give him extra candy. Not worth it to argue. and I hope you all have a great holiday tomorrow, and see you next time. Namo AMIDA BUTSU. Namo AMIDA BUTSU. Namo AMIDA BUTSU.
Will you all please stand for the Gathas, Namo AMIDA BUTSU and Nembutsu.
Oh, okay. Yeah, tell him.
Okay, you have to tell them.
What is it?
135.
135.
They don't have paper.
In the old book, it's 135.
Sorry.
Wigan.
It's not 135.
174.
174.
When life is fair and sunlight gilds the day, when fortune smiles and flowers adorn our way, oft let us pause
NAMO. Please be seated.
This concludes the service for today, and I'd like to thank Reverend Gary for a story that maybe some of you have heard before, but I think it's a really good story for us when we think about things that don't make sense in the world, and that how AMIDA's compassion and wisdom is there for all of us. So thank you for your talk today, Reverend Gary. I'd like to thank our reader today, Ruth Funai, and for those who helped with the service. John Skelly was the pianist. We have our technicians ever ready, David Brady and Carl Palma. And for those who assisted with the service today, Nobuko Kodama and Maiko Tanaka. And actually, Maiko's son helped us too. He's 3 years old, but he helped to clean around the altar. So it was a good day today. And next week we have the November Shotsuki, the memorial service, monthly memorial service, and we also have the Ashini Kakushiniko memorial service. So Ashiniko and Kakushiniko are, we owe a lot to them in terms of the Jodo Shinshu tradition, because Ashini was Shinran Shonin's wife, Kakushini their daughter, and because Kakushini was so persistent and so devoted, she really helped to start having sanghas and teachings around the country. So we owe a lot to them. The Buddhist women in our tradition were also strong and powerful. So if you want to hear more about that, Reverend Isabel will be our speaker next week. And then in a few weeks later, we will have Reverend Patty Nakai, who is at the Buddhist Temple of Chicago, and she will be speaking to us. I think you'll enjoy her point of view. She always has something really interesting to talk about, and has very strong opinions too. So I think you'll enjoy listening to her. As we go into December, we will be doing some of our normal activities that we do at the end of the year. So stay tuned for that, and please, we also appreciate your dana, your donations. It's important that we keep the lights on here. It's more than just the lights. We have a lot of financial challenges too, and I know everybody else does at this point, but it's important that everybody support the New York Buddhist Church. If you're a Sangha member, or if you're out there in Facebook land and YouTube land, we appreciate your support too, because I know that there are so many that do join us every Sunday. And If you want to become a member, we do have the membership form on our website. It's the New York Buddhist Church.org, and you can download that. You can pay for membership by PayPal or send in a check, but we really appreciate your support. And let's close the service today with Gassho. In gratitude for the opportunity for us all to come together as a Sangha, both here in person and out there on Facebook and YouTube land. We appreciate this opportunity that we are one together. NAMO AMIDA BUTSU. NAMO AMIDA BUTSU. NAMO AMIDA BUTSU.